Cedric Peterson, and welcome to another special edition of Inside Government. In this edition, my guests in studio represent the Monroe College, and their representatives are Ms. Pamela Delaporte, the Vice President of Corporate Community Outreach, and I have Ms. Lorraine Myers, Assistant Director of International Admissions at Monroe College. Ladies, welcome to this edition of Inside Government.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes.
It's great to have you. It's great to see you and, of course, talk about Monroe College.
Yes.
This relationship with St. Martin isn't brand new. It's
Not at all.
actually, 10 years now that the school's been working with the government of St. Martin, attracting our students. Let's first start off with explaining a little bit about the history of the school for those that might be interested in knowing more about Monroe College. Mrs. Delaporte, you want to jump into that and give us a little historical background?
Absolutely. And I love the story and history of Monroe College.
Right.
We were founded in 1933 by a woman, Miss Mildred King, who started with 7 women in a classroom in the Bronx and founded the school based on really a need in the community. Women were kind of left back from the war and needed to get a skill set to be able to survive. And slowly but surely, she developed this program and trained women to go into the workforce. And before she knew it, she had more than 7 students, and it was too much for her to handle alone. And she asked her brother-in-law, Harry Jerome, to help out. And he came over and helped out. And slowly but surely, they started to build this training institute. And if you kind of flash forward 85 plus years, Harry Jerome's son, Stephen, took over for 51 years as the president and really started to develop the college, going from that institute to a real college and getting accredited. So we started with associate degrees. Now we have bachelor's degrees and master's programs. We're fully accredited regionally by the Middle States in New York. And we're super proud of that, as well as an online delivery with majors. So that also makes it easy for students to go to school. So our story is heartfelt because it's a family business that started and really felt a need in the community. And that message and mission has continued over the years. We still have a stronghold in history in the Bronx, as well as New Rochelle, which is also in New York, about 15 minutes away from the Bronx campus. It's a little bit of a city suburb.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have a campus in St. Lucia, and again, the online presence. And so every time we've kind of scouted out and made a journey and a pathway into a new campus or, idea or initiative, it's always community-based and seeing something that was needed.
Now, folks, keep in mind what you just heard. One of those locations that was just mentioned is St. Lucia.
Yes.
Not St. Lucia, New York. St. Lucia, the island, the
You got
independent
it.
nation,
Yes.
which is very unique. Explain a little bit about that, the campus in St. Lucia. What was the vision from Monroe College as it relates to the St. Lucia campus?
Well, as I mentioned, Stephen Jerome was the president for over 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
His son is now the president, which is President Mark Jerome. And Mark his father kind of started the New Rochelle campus, but Mark took it from really the ground up. And one of the things that Mark saw a need in was international recruiting. And we started the international recruiting, and he started in the Caribbean, and he did it himself. He went out with the staff that was there and started to do this recruiting. And it started, in Jamaica, and before you knew it, we were in St. Martin, and we were in Dominica, a lot of different islands. And we had a history with St. Lucia. We knew some of the folks there, and it's been about over 10 years we've had the campus. And as a result, it's enabled our Caribbean students who don't want to come to New York, who want to take a hop over to an island that's close by,
Right.
to be able to go to school and have the opportunity to go and get their education and be close to home. And it's been a wonderful opportunity, and it's really had a different footprint for the college as well, because through that, it's not only done just, we're not only educating students for associates and bachelor's and master's degrees, but also for, different training programs. So, for instance, right now we have a training program specifically with the government of St. Lucia and folks who need training to work on the cruise ships or in the hospitality industry.
Correct.
We're doing a 4-month training where the students pick housekeeping, front office procedures, event planning, bartending, and they choose one of these pathways For 4 months, they go through the training, they get an internship, and then there's a job placement. And so we've had 4 cycles of this. So that's been another offshoot of the campus, which is, again, seeing that need and developing a program around it. So that's really exciting. And, I think that's kind of the mission and the culture of the college.
Let's get to know you ladies just a little bit more from a professional aspect and your connection with the school. Your position with the college, Ms. Delaporte, Vice President of Corporate Community Outreach.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Explain that exactly.
What is that? So the title was actually created by President Jerome because I oversee career services, which is the professional development of all of our students. So I take our students from being a student to a working adult. And we have 3 different teams, one in St. Lucia, one in the Bronx, and one in New Rochelle. And what we do is really assist our students. We teach them how to fish. We don't give them the fish. We teach them how to do a resume, how to develop a LinkedIn profile, how to do an elevator pitch, how to research a job, how to go on an interview, how to dress professionally. And so that's one of the kind of pathways that I am responsible for. The other pathway is corporate partnerships. And about 10 years ago, prior to me coming on, they started it. And I actually came from Boston. I worked at 2 other colleges in Boston. And for 5 years, I also oversaw a corporate partnership program. And so when I came, it was kind of, the program was kind of underneath admissions for a while and underneath different places. And so they came to me and said, Pamela, do you want to kind of run with this and develop it? And I said, absolutely. And so I love it because it really feeds into my pathway of career services. So our corporate partnership division has over 420 partners, national, statewide, actually now international, because I've developed this in St. Lucia and hopefully here in St. Martin. And what we do is we go out to different companies, public, private, and we speak to them about really sharing resources. So, for instance, NYPD is one of our partners. We have Whole Foods. We have 1199 Unions. We have the Ritz-Carlton. We have big, small, every type of business in all of our industries. And what we do when we go out and we speak about our 3 pathways, do you want to utilize our applicant pool for an internship opportunity? So then our students can do internships at these partners. Do you have any full or part-time jobs I can publicize and advertise for you? Would you like to come on campus and attend one of our events? Would you like to do some on-campus recruiting? So those 2 pathways have been just invaluable for our students because it feeds kind of all of the jobs and opportunities that our students need, because our goal is to have students graduate and land jobs and be able to compete. The third pathway is us really extending a 20% tuition reduction to these companies so that their employees can go to school. And it's part of their succession planning, part of their kind of mission, their core values. So when we go into these companies, their first question is, how much is this? Or do I have to sign a contract? And they love my answer, which is, it's free. There's no contract. It's nothing but a handshake and sharing of resources. So these companies that we've developed these relationships with, sometimes they do all 3 pathways. They'll give us internship opportunities or jobs, or even students come, or sometimes they'll just utilize one. And it's been just a huge benefit, a great brand for the college as well as for these companies. And they could have several colleges they work for. It doesn't have to be just Monroe. So, we encourage them to just utilize us on their menu of opportunities. So we sometimes go to these companies and we'll do lunch and learns. So employees can come in and they can ask questions, because there's nothing more important than the human kind of touch and be able to speak to people and not have them just get onto their technology and make decisions just based on that. We want to bring kind of the information to them and build that relationship with the employer as well as with the employee. So we'll do info sessions, we'll do benefit fairs. We go inside their little new hire packet with a flyer and letting their employees know. And it really enables students to be able to go to school and have a little bit of a break financially, which every company wants to be able to offer and sometimes can't.
I'm speaking to the representatives of Monroe College, Miss Pamela Delaporte and Miss Lorraine Myers, who we're going to get a chance to meet right after this break. You're watching listening to a special edition of Inside Government. Stay with us.
Every day at the Civil Registry Department, we are confronted with at least one customer who did not pay attention to the expiration date of their passport, such as the Lockharts. To avoid this from happening to you and your family, we urge you to check the validity of your passport. If your passport is about to expire, please follow these simple steps to make an appointment. Visit appointments.stmartingov.org and follow the easy steps. All applicants must apply in person, last issued Dutch passport, 2 recent photos taken within 6 months. Minors must be present with legal guardians. Fee for adults, 210 guilders. Fee for minors, 150 guilders. Additional information can be requested. 4 weeks processing time. Your identity is your responsibility.
Hello, everyone. You're watching and viewing. You're listening and watching an Inside Government Special Edition. I'm Cedric Peterson, and my guest in studio is Pamela Delaporte, the Vice President of Corporate Community Outreach at Monroe College, and Miss Lorraine Myers, Assistant Director of International Admissions. Lorraine, we didn't get a chance to talk to you, so let's jump into your role specifically in this segment and focus on your task as the Assistant Director of International Admissions. I guess our St. Martin students would be kind of interacting with you when they choose Monroe, huh?
That is so correct. So my responsibility at the college is basically to work with students who have an interest wanting to pursue their studies in New York. For the different campuses, we do have other admissions counselors who we will assign them to work with. But for students coming directly to New York, that is my responsibility. Once someone expresses initial interest in coming to Monroe, that's when I reach out to them. They can send in an application. They can send in for info request. Once that information reaches my office, then I make contact with the student just to find out what their goals are, what directions they're looking to go for. And then basically, once we get a hang of it, what they want to do when they're looking to start school, my responsibility is just to guide the applicant through the entire application process until they get to New York. So in terms of admissions requirements, visa, the embassy, we take care of all of that in my department.
And right, it makes that process of, especially that anxiety that you get when you're leaving home, a lot easier. Tell us a little bit about the relationship between St. Martin and Monroe College over the last few years, especially in your position?
All right, so that's a great question. Myself was an international student, so I have been through the application process, so I know what it is like being an international student. So I find that responsibility of what I'm doing very good because I was in that position and I'm able to give students not only what Monroe Way is, but also based on my experience as an international student, I can guide these students accordingly. We've been coming to St. Martin for quite a few years. We try to make 2 trips per year. And based on our relationship with Study Financing, USM, and a few of the high schools that are here, our goal is to make sure that we are providing students with the necessary information about our college. In this point of time right now, a lot of schools are here. There's information on the internet, and people need to make an informed decision. So I don't think that getting enough information can be enough.
Exactly.
Right? Mm-hmm. So I think that once we come here, we give them information not only about our college, but also about studying in the U.S. And I feel that is so beneficial to the students because when we're breaking down the information, apart from the admissions requirements, which may vary based on different colleges or different countries, the sponsorship process, going to the embassy, it is the same information. So we make sure that we're able to guide these students accordingly by giving them the right answers to their questions, any concerns, any issues that they may have. Mm-hmm. We're able to provide them with all of that. And just to make sure that the process is seamless, because leaving your country, going into a totally new environment can be very, very scary.
Exactly.
Right? So we want to make sure that from the point that these students have expressed interest, we're there to guide them and just to make them feel comfortable. We're not an institution that is not going to provide you with information or the necessary guidance that you need. We're with students every single step of the way. And that's why these St. Martin students, they love us. We build relationships with them once they start. My students, I know them by their first name. When they come into New York, yes, they're no longer working with me. They still stop by. I still check in with them. When they're graduating, I'm there still celebrating their successes with them. So it's from the beginning all the way up to the end. We provide that support for them. We're very, very big on customer service.
I noticed a slight Caribbean accent as
Ah.
you speak. And I'll hone in here. Sounds a little bit like the island of Jamaica.
That is so correct. Yes, I'm from Jamaica. I've been in the U.S. for quite a few years now, but I've currently been at Monroe for a little bit over 10 years. I went to New York as a Monroe student, so that was how I was recruited. And it's like I tell people all the time, I went through the process. I was at a college in Jamaica when Monroe representatives came and they presented there. And we normally tell people, you're not going to go to Monroe because we come and present to you right at this moment. There are different times that you'll be able to go to school. For me, I was not able to go to school right after. I had to work, I had to save in order to go to school. So Jamaica is my home. Monroe is my home now. New York is my home.
Large amount of Jamaican students.
Yes,
are in
we
Monroe?
we do get a big population of students applying from Jamaica. That's the biggest Caribbean island that we do get students from. However, we are basically everywhere in the Caribbean that you can think of. Everywhere that we go, we have maintained relationships. We have new partnerships. There are different governments that we work with as well. So we're very well renowned around the Caribbean region.
Ms. Delaporte, the St. Lucia connection, it makes sense. You know, a student that leaves from home here in the islands would look at St. Lucia and say, wow, you know what, I don't have to travel that far.
That's
And
right.
they're a lot more comfortable. But I understand that there's still an opportunity there that even though you start at St. Lucia, or even start here at home at the University of St. Martin, your next leg of your educational journey can take you to New York where you can wrap up. Explain that process.
You know, the thing about education is that it's really just transformed over the years, and it's not just going to a school, staying, or commuting. You know, it's not like you can get in the dorms or you can commute. There's so many different options. And so we like to give our students, because we understand that they have different responsibilities and they have different ties, and it's not always easy for students to make the leap from an island to New York. So let's talk about the different options, because there's a lot of them, which I think it's instrumental for students to be able to have options and not feel like they have to just go one way. So a student could obviously make the direct route right to New York and, you know, get right into their degree program from St. Martin, or they could go to University of St. Martin for 2 years, get their associate's degree, and then come on over to New York and finish off their bachelor's degree or perhaps their master's. They could also go to St. Lucia and do a semester or two over there and then transfer to New York. Or they could be 100% online, you know, if they're working full time, and sometimes they might have a family situation that holds them back and they need to help out with their, you know, socioeconomic situation. But the beauty of St. Lucia is that if a student comes to St. Lucia, they lock in at a lower tuition cost, and that will transfer to New York with them. So students like to kind of take that, what I consider a small step, instead of, you know, the big leap. They'll go to St. Lucia, they'll get used to living away from home, especially for our high school students, but yet they're close enough, be able to get their 2 years under their belt, and then transfer to New York and lock in at that reduced tuition rate, which is really essential because, you know, the cost of going to school for many families is huge. And we've really taken that into account, especially with our international students, and we have reduced it significantly.
The opportunity for you to get more information concerning admissions and, of course, the academic side of things, the different subjects that you can expose yourself to. We'll tackle that in the next segment.
Excellent.
So you're watching and listening to this special edition of Inside Government. We're talking to representatives of Monroe College. Stay with us. More after the break.
Every day at the Civil Registry Department, we are confronted with at least one customer who did not pay attention to the expiration date of their passport, such as the Lockharts. To avoid this from happening to you and your family, we urge you to check the validity of your passport. If your passport is about to expire, please follow these simple steps to make an appointment. Visit appointments.stmartingov.org and follow the easy steps. All applicants must apply in person, last issued Dutch passport, 2 recent photos taken within 6 months. Minors must be present with legal guardians. Fee for adults, 210 guilders. Fee for minors, 150 guilders. Additional information can be requested. 4 weeks processing time. Your identity is your responsibility.
Welcome back, everyone. You're watching and listening to a special edition of Inside Government. We're talking to the representatives of Monroe College, based in New York, the Bronx. They also have a campus in New Rochelle and on the island of St. Lucia. And we just left off in the last segment talking about the process of how you can transition from here at home or the island of St. Lucia and end at New York, where you'll be able to get your bachelor's or even move on to your master's degree. And there's the online study aspect as well. Before we get into the various academic subjects that one can expose themselves to, let's talk about that online experience. People tend to not take that as seriously as they should. Just because you're not sitting in the traditional classroom doesn't make online studying any easier. So what can you say to students that might say, oh, well, you know what, online sounds easy enough. I shouldn't have to go to the classroom. Is there a major difference there?
I believe there is. For certain student profile, I don't really recommend for them to do online studies. For a high schooler, I believe it's a little bit more difficult. I believe that they do need to be in front of a class. They need to be on campus just to get that kind of experience. Online is more geared for mature students. You have to have that time management skill. You have to learn how to prioritize. You can't be all over. And I think that the more mature you are, the better it is for you, because then you'll be able to divide your time and divide it correctly, right? Even though we have adults who are mainly enrolled in our online program, people who are employed, people with family, they're able to divide their time and they're able to get it done. Our online program, everything is 100% online. The customer support, your professors, everything is 100% done online. So you definitely have to be in that mindset, have that frame of mind to be able to be committed in getting the job done. So it's not for everyone, but once you're able to see yourself doing it, I normally say for students, some of them who are on our campus, they will do a hybrid. So they'll at least do one class online just to get a feel of it, with the majority being on site. So then they'll see that it's also not too bad. It just has to do with how well you're able to balance your time and to get the work done. Because you definitely, while online does not have a classroom start time and a classroom end time, you definitely have to submit your assignments on time. There are discussions that have to be made that you have to submit on time. So you have to put the work in to get it done.
Here's a question for you. So I'm a working professional here at home. I have a bachelor's degree. I've always wanted to get my master's. Can I approach Monroe College from the island of St. Martin and start an online course? Is that possible?
That is so possible, and that is something that we would totally recommend, because you are a professional, you're working, you may have a family, you do not want to leave your home. So that is quite fine. We do offer our programs, our graduate programs online. So once you decide that's the path you want to take, we will get you in touch with the right person who's going to guide you through that admissions process. It's not a lengthy process, and I normally tell people the process is really dependent on you as the applicant. Our process is straightforward. Whatever we ask for, as long as we get it, we're wrapping you up in a really, really quick time, right? Any questions, any concerns that you may have, we're there to explain it to you. Before you start your classes for online, there are workshops that you have to attend. You have to know how to use our student system, Blackboard. So you're getting the guidance that you are going to need to make everything seamless and comfortable for you before you actually go ahead and start your classes online.
The students that we normally tend to see coming out of high school, especially here in St. Martin, normally tend to take one of two routes, either business or science. So when coming to Monroe, what type of academics do we normally see our St. Martin students gravitating to?
We have different student profiles because we do take students directly from high school. So students who are in the Dutch system that do the HAVO, students are now doing CXCs here. We take them directly out of high school. Some students may not want to leave right after. Some may want to work. Some may want to go to the University of St. Martin. For those students who go to the USM, they're able to transfer in credits. So it's going to take them a significantly less time to complete their degree program. But some of the the more popular programs that we see these students doing, business and accounting, criminal justice is rising, public health, and we also see a rise in hospitality and management, also with culinary arts and baking and pastry. So the students are coming in completing those degree programs.
Cost when one is considering Monroe College? Of course, the parents who are listening to this interview
Yes.
would definitely.
Their ears
How
are
much does it
pressed.
cost exactly? So, what are we talking about?
Well, let me just put it out there. We are a private institution, but I must say, and Pamela can attest to this, that even though we're a private institution, our tuition is very competitive when you do a comparison with other institutions in New York. In addition to that, we partner with study financing here. So a student who is accepted at Monroe College, they can apply for study financing. And once they are approved, Monroe College automatically grants them additional funding for a year as well. So they're getting two different funding to cover their fees, which is going to cut down on their costs significantly, because the fees from study financing combined with Monroe scholarship, it's covering a part of their tuition, their administrative fees, housing, meal plan. Right, so we're covered. They're getting a good deal. Some students, if they do not qualify for study financing, they will have to show the funding from their family members, right? And even in that situation, we're still able to review for scholarships, partial scholarships, and grants, which will aid them towards their expenses that they may have. Or tuition currently for the undergraduate degrees is a little bit over $8,000 per semester. But like I said, if you do a comparison, even with the SUNY and the CUNY schools in New York, very, very competitive. And if a student is awarded a partial academic scholarship or a grant, that grant or scholarship is subtracted from their tuition every semester they are there until they complete their program. So their tuition is discounted every semester.
Excellent. Final thing I want to ask is the wrap-up process where that student finishes and that he or she has now got their eyes on their careers. How does Monroe College assist the student in being able to position themselves for employment?
Right, so career services.
You're handing that one over to Ms.
That's
Delaporte?
her
just
field.
passing that right over.
Okay.
Thank you. You know, we talk a lot about real world education. And so that starts really with our academics, is choosing and developing curriculum that is aligned to what the market is looking for and what the demand is. So our students have an opportunity while they're in school with us to do an internship. It's actually a required class. You cannot graduate unless you do an internship. And, you know, it's a really, I think it's one of the most interesting process to see a student go through, because they come in and, you know, they're nervous and they don't know how to find an internship. And again, we work with them and position them, you know, talk about soft skills and talk about what the expectation is when they go out on their internship and their potential job. So we send out about 700 students every semester, and we have 3 semesters at Monroe, which is an accelerated program. So they get done a lot quicker than most students who go to the traditional 2 semesters. And so I consider this kind of the first process of getting them ready. And when they choose their internship, many of them will land full-time jobs through the internship. But the process really starts the day they come in the door, because when we meet with them at orientation, I say, you know, your whole goal is to graduate and find what? A job, not to stay in school your whole life. You know, you've been working for a long time in school. It's time for you to get out and not just get a job, but really enter into a career. And so we talk a lot about the professional branding of that student and what the expectation is to compete. So we work on all the tools that are necessary to really get them what I consider internship and career ready. So there's a lot of emphasis on working with our students. And because, you know, we're in New York, there's a lot of competition, and our students do so well. I mean, I am like a proud mother of all of them. When they go out and come back and we get evaluations, you know, it's great. And, you know, we work with them, you know, and kind of guide them through that first job process, which is so important. We've all been there. You know, I remember going out for my first job and not really even knowing where to begin. You know, I don't even know how to start this whole process. It could be very daunting. So we kind of support them, and that's a life service. So they can come back at any point and work with career services, and we can help and assist them with their resumes or researching. We have a database that they utilize. So it's been really, you know, I think one of the strong commitments to the college is to be able to get them ready to get out there and be able to compete and get into a career that they love.
Right. Just one thing to just to add to that, because in terms of our international students, when they come there, once they complete their degree, every international student has the opportunity to work for at least 1 year. Right. This, I believe, is very good for everybody just to get some experience while being in the U.S., even if your intention is to return home, because you're returning home with experience from working in the U.S. So every international student will be able to participate in what is called optional practical training. And this allows for them to work anywhere after they have graduated. They've completed their studies at Monroe College for 1 year. Once they're finished with their optional practical training, they can either go back and get a higher level degree, and we make it so much easier for them because if you complete a bachelor degree program, once you work for that 1 year, you can come right back to us and complete your master's degree in at least 4 semesters, right? And then after you complete that graduate degree, you get another year to work. So when you return home, you're coming home with a wealth of information, not only theoretical classroom work, but you're getting that career, that professional work experience within the U.S. that I think that is so good in the islands here when they bring all of that experience back.
Great information. Vice President of Corporate Community Outreach, Ms. Pamela Delaporte, and Assistant Director of International Admissions, Ms. Lorraine Myers, representatives of Monroe College. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing this information with us on this edition of Inside Government.
Thank you so much for having us.
And to our radio listeners and television viewers, thank you for tuning in and being a part of this special edition of the program. If you've missed a broadcast, be sure to log on for video on demand at the official government website, stmartingov.org, and listen throughout the day here on St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM for rebroadcast. On behalf of all of us here at the Department of Communication, I'm Cedric Peterson. Thanks for tuning in.